You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Alan Weitz.
Hi, I'm Alan Weitz, and welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. Today's topic is cult cameras and why it's getting hard to find a decent used Hasselblad these days. The used photo market is a barometer of what's popular, collectible, durable, and, depending on your point of view, cool and fashionable. Today's podcast is going to be an open conversation with photographer and camera collector Jason Wallace, and one of the most knowledgeable, trusted, and personable, and if I'm not mistaken, the tallest member of the B&H Used Gear Department, Koentje. We'll talk about which cameras hold their value, which digital cameras are the new classics, which ones fly off the shelves faster than others. And we're also going to talk a bit about what goes on behind the scenes when it comes to checking out equipment, pricing gear, and what to look for when you're purchasing used cameras, lenses, and whatever else might be in the photo department. We're also going to talk about trust and reputation, which is really also an important part of the game. Chris, let's start with you. Mm-hmm. Who are your customers? I know that they're pros, amateur students. We get people from all over the planet here. And how many of these faces are familiar, return customers? Do most of them know what they're looking for, or do they need guidance? That's like 5 questions in one.
Having done this for about 43 years, I think I've outlived most of my customers at this point. But now we have people that I've known for 30 years who come by and say hi. And then we have people... because it is such an international place from all over the world. And the fun thing about that is that you can actually watch trends move around the world because you get reports every day from Argentina, Brazil, Europe, where things are going, where they're moving, and it's pretty exciting. So, yeah, there's educational. I learn every day. That's the most important thing because you can't possibly know everything about every product. So I pick up stuff every day from my customers.
Interesting. Jason, you tend to wander around with a lot of eclectic gear. What got you into used gear? What do you look for when you start playing around with stuff? What strikes your fancy?
Well, things I bought new a long time ago, and now they're used in reasonable prices, and particularly items that have been produced in great volume and are awash in the market.
How does it affect your shooting? Because I know that you always have a camera with you. It's not unusual to see Jason walking around with an RB67 with a prism around his neck, which I find impressive by itself. Listen to that shutter go off. There you go. Seismic meters just went off in California from that thing.
The physical presence of it as a 6-pound camera encourages a slower, more contemplative process, and I enjoy that. I've done breaking news, public relations, weddings, so forth at high speed, and this is not for that. But this is what I like to do at the pace I like to do it.
Yeah, well, there's also a people aspect to this because if you're walking down the street with an RB67, which is about, 3-4 pounds, people come up and start talking to you. They're fascinated. And, that's what a lot of this is all about now. People are rediscovering the patina, the look, the feel, the sound of all this stuff. Not just mass-produced plastic items and electronic items, which are very efficient, but kind of distant. So it's fun to watch people who are attached to their own equipment and how it brings in other people as part of the conversation as well.
One of the cameras that I bought here at B&H, thank you, Chris, was an Olympus O product, which I actually have with me here today. And it's, for those of you who have never seen it, go Google Olympus O product. It was made back in the 80s. It's a simple point-and-shoot camera with a fixed 35mm lens. But it looks like something, it's very retro, very 30s. It has a look as if some lunatic went into an aluminum shop and built a camera that's bright, shiny aluminum. Now, what's funny about the camera itself is very, very simple and basic. There's nothing high-tech about it. It has autofocus and a meter. But people look at it and they stop and they talk to you. And I find that if I'm going to a party or a family gathering, I take this with me. And the pictures that I get out of it are wonderful because people say, that's a camera? Sometimes I'll goof on it, and I'll actually hold it up and I'll start talking to it if it's a phone, which is actually a lot of fun.
Cool.
But I find that the pictures I get with this camera are really good because people are thrilled that this goofy camera really works and that they're having their picture taken.
Absolutely true. You know, when you pick up a camera, and that's why when a customer comes in, the most important thing you can do is say, well, what's your intention? You know, somebody says medium format. Well, that's like saying automobile. So you have to take it through a process of, well, what's your intention? Are you going to be doing portraits in a studio situation, landscapes, reportage? So a Rolleiflex twin lens, or Yashica for that matter, is going to be operated and be assessed by the subject differently than a Hasselblad, which is a modular medium format camera. It's just noisier, bigger, clunkier, and it has a different response when you use a different product. So you want to get the right tool, and that's why it's important to go through that process.
One of the things I noticed is that if I walked into the used department 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, there were a lot of Hasselblads on the shelf of all different types.
Yeah.
Now I walk in there and there are very few of them.
Yeah, it's been an interesting dynamic, and I don't want to say, Nostradamus, but I said about 5 or 6 years ago, I said, people are going to get inundated with electronic imaging, and they're going to look for something different, and the different thing generally would be some type of film camera. And over the last 3 or 4 years, it's been a building swell of demand for film-type products. Now, the Hasselblad, being the star of the show, gets a lot of the social media talk. So as we started to ramp up, people talking about film photography, a lot of this is shared on social media. And I've noticed that specific items, Hasselblad, Rolleiflex, premium stuff, Leica, gets sucked up first. People love this stuff, and it's great. So, yeah, we cannot supply demand now. That's how much it's grown after the last 2.5, 3 years.
Now, you used the film word a few times, and when you buy these cameras, specifically a Hasselblad or a Mamiya with an interchangeable back, we now have relatively affordable digital backs to go along with many of these cameras, including your RB. If you really wanted to talk about eclectic, an RB67 with a digital back, that's pretty eclectic. But it's possible and it's doable. So we're not only talking film here, we are talking digital. And while I have the word digital on my mind, what about digital? I know that we think used department, you think film, but the truth is we have a lot of digital cameras that are also here right now in the used department. And there are advantages to that too, because as we all know, digital cameras come out far more frequently than we want to admit sometimes. I know the Nikon F3 film camera was produced for 26 years, relatively unchanged. Right. Now, 3 years is a long time for a cycle of any camera before it's a new replacement camera comes out. Now, it doesn't mean that the one it's replacing it is suddenly not a good camera. The other one, the new one, might do things better and usually does, but not always. But I think there's some advantages right now also if you're on a budget or you're a student or you say you're doing something experimental and you don't want to destroy something that cost $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 or even $3,000 or $2,000. There are some good digital alternatives out there too. So how many people are coming in looking for digital cameras? Is it much as film or is it equal, less, more?
Oh, no. I mean, the big mover is digital. And there's so much interest. There's so much new product, mirrorless cameras and DSLRs and point and shoots and stuff. Although a good phone is knocking off a lot of the snapshot business. But a funny story, one of my customers who I've known for 30 years came in yesterday, and he bought maybe his 15th Nikon D200, which is maybe an 8-year-old camera now, and it cost $219. And it was mint condition, and it does exactly what he wants, and that's why he buys them. And then, of course, we have the latest technology. We have DA10s. If you can save money, $500, $1,000 on a package, hey, that's what people want to do. And people know that there's a shelf life. They'll keep the camera for a year or two, maybe longer. But basically, you flip out before you go into a catastrophic financial nosedive. And that happens with electronics in general. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jason, I know that usually you shoot film. Digital also? Are you still shooting digital?
Oh, sure. For color. I was a custom printer in a color lab, and I know analog color printing well enough to appreciate not doing it. Much prefer to do it electronically. You can make non-linear edits that we dreamed of, that we used masks to make, sort of, in the film world, and still couldn't match the flexibility and the reversibility of electronic editing.
I know. I've seen what you walk around with as far as older classic film cameras. What about digital? Have you gone into any of things? Is there anything that you've bought?
I like to buy pro digital cameras, Canon 1DS series, several years behind because the price plummets. Yeah. And you can still get professional performance that's very usable today.
Yeah, if there's one bit of advice, though, that's what I would tell my customers. Value shoppers, people who are interested in buying stuff. If you go 1 or 2 generations back, you're getting a phenomenal camera at sometimes a third of the price it was selling brand new. So a $2,000 camera could be $600-700. That's commonplace now. That money you save, you can put into a better lens, which is really what it's all about. Ultimately, getting good glass and a good sensor.
I'd also imagine that with the advent of mirrorless cameras, that's also changed the used market a lot as far as what people are looking for and shopping for. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
But it's funny how expectations are created. Now we have every major manufacturer. Well, not everyone, but a lot of the manufacturers make them. But then you see people put these big lenses on these little bodies, and so part of what I've learned is that when a customer comes in, you counsel them. You go, well, what's your goal? Are you going to do sports or nature? Where you're going to put a big super telephoto or zoom on it? And I said, well, maybe you should consider maybe a more compact DSLR. So again, everything has a place, and part of the job here at B&H is really to help the customer through the process. And it has changed. Let's face it. Who wants to walk around with 4 or 5 pounds of camera equipment when you can do a pound or pound and a half in a little bag? It's phenomenal.
Right.
It's a Leica-esque concept, which is what I really like about it.
Speaking about Leica, one of the things I noticed is that for a long time, Leica is known as rangefinders and predominantly the M-series cameras, but they also made some extremely good reflex cameras that were discontinued, film cameras. Mm-hmm. And the lenses that were made for these cameras were really excellent. And for the longest time, you could buy them by the pound because the cameras were gone. Everyone went digital. And we have all of these wonderful lenses sitting on the shelves that you could buy for peanuts. Now with mirrorless cameras and an adapter, and most adapter manufacturers are making Leica or adapters to go with pretty much all of the cameras that are out there. These prices are now going up. And a lot of people are saying, hey, I could have some really excellent glass for any camera that I own. Even if I switch from one brand to another from time to time, all I need is an adapter, and now I could take my lenses with me. And I think it's an important thing. If you look at what's available for lenses right now, and I know that I can't walk into the store without stopping at the sales counter and just looking to see what's there in the used. And, I'm a sucker for these things, and I often end up buying things. Chris, you're going to pay for this
You're
someday.
one of our best customers, Alan. Me too.
I think we're all guilty of that. But I think that that's also an important thing for a beginner and even a pro, somebody who's been shooting for a while. There are some really wonderful, I hate to say bargains, but you could save money and get some really very, very good equipment by shopping in the used. And again, you're not stuck into one particular. If you own a Nikon or a Sony or a Pentax or Canon, whatever, you're not locked into any one brand. I think it's an important note for these kind of things.
Well, Canon, with the DSLR video aspect of it, really is what got this thing going, on the 5D Mark II. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, all the premium glass, Zeiss or Leica, Nikons, were being utilized more because a manual lens, in many cases, is a lot easier to use for videography and control. So that ignited the market. Now, of course, we've got into a whole new era of mirrorless compact cameras where it's reignited again. So the demand, once again, for practical reasons or aesthetic reasons or whatever, is really going off the charts. So it's hard to keep up with it. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So now that we're all going out and buying used cameras and lenses and bodies and things, that here's an important thing. What are we looking for? What kind of things should you check for? Jason, I know you're out there all the time. You pick up a camera body, you pick up a lens. What are the things that you're looking for? Because, again, you're buying something and you don't know who used it before. You don't know what they used it for. There's all kinds of surprise. I just off the cuff, I used to do a lot of yachting photography, and I remember I once went into a camera store to trade in some stuff, and for somehow the guy put it to his nose, and he goes, "It smells like salt water." He has no idea how much salt water this thing got.
Good.
But yeah, I mean, and obviously, I mean, if you open up if you look carefully, you could see oxidation was going on, all kinds of funny green, coppery colors and stuff. But what are the sort of things that you should look for? And I'll put this out to both of you right now. I know the things that I would check, but things that you have to do right off the bat. Say with the camera body, what are the things you look for?
I check for areas of a given camera that I know fail easily, like the rotating back on an RB.
Okay.
And I'll turn it and feel it and see if the interlock catch will stick in between positions. Things I've had happen to me. And if they're used really hard, it'll happen more. Take them apart, look inside, see if the flocking is falling off.
The fine flocking.
Yes.
I know what you're talking about, but what are you talking? What is that?
The anti-reflection coatings on the inside of the camera. If it's used really hard or it's been in heat, it'll come off and drop onto the mirror and be loose inside the camera. Mm-hmm. It's a sign of heavy use.
Also, the film advance is something. If it's in advance, you check on that. If it's a film camera,
in the advance,
you look at wear on the pressure plate and the film tracks, things of that sort. I know something that I've always checked for if it's a mechanical camera with a mechanical shutter speeds. Mm-hmm. The mid-range speeds tend to stay fairly accurate, but you should listen to 1 second, half second, quarter second. Even the high-end shutter speeds, those are harder to detect. But chances are, if your slower speeds, if 1 second goes by a little bit quicker than a second, you know you have a problem there. How has eBay changed the used department? I know we all go on there and bought it, but has it changed the used market that much?
Well, it's not as wild and woolly as it used to be.
Good point.
There are occasionally grossly inflated prices, and I usually check a reference, something like KEH.com, that has fairly conservative grades and reasonable prices, and compare it. If I find something that appears to be the same grade but much higher in price, I'll move on.
I personally noticed that there are some dealers that will just put something at ridiculous prices, and they're there forever. They don't care if it sells, it sells. If not, it doesn't matter anymore. So it has changed a lot.
Well, it's the access to information. Now it's not just your local newspaper. Now the classifieds were the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you could go to a dealer and buy a car or whatever, a camera, or you can go to the classifieds, and there were always like a Shutterbug newspaper, or it used to be bylines. They used to advertise camera equipment in the bylines. I don't think it even exists anymore. But listen, buyer beware. That's what it comes down to. And today we're just inundated with a lot more information, a lot more product, and it's coming from Japan, it's coming from Germany, it's coming from South America, and the United States. So it's like the classified newspaper shopper versus somebody who wants the comfort and support of going to a established dealership who shops prices and comes up with a consensus price that's appealing because there's guarantees and returns, and the camera's been checked out. So it's
good point. But you said about cameras been checked out. Now, one thing I know about B&H is that we do check out cameras that come through here. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, yeah, I mean, it would be suicide business in just business sense to just grab a camera from somebody and throw it on the shelf and then watch it explode in the customer's hands. You don't want to do that. So we actually, we have a whole trade-in procedure, testing machines. We have a technician, actually 2 technicians in-house who can service a lot of our own product if there's an issue. And we don't take outside work in, but it's there as part of the support to make sure the customer is not going to get annoyed by something that had been overlooked. And it does happen once in a while, to be honest with you.
I know it was one thing that was a few years ago. It might have been on DP Review. Somebody bought a digital camera from B&H, and a memory card was in it. And they took it out and opened up files, and it was pictures of the technicians we have here checking out the cameras. Then they ran some of the pictures, but there you go. They busted us. We check our cameras before we sell them.
Yeah. Well, I think any reputable business knows that the support staff, not just winging it, and that's what happens with a lot of dealerships, is the way to grow. And and that's what customers like, for the most part. I mean, you always have bargain hunters, but listen, we have there's many times when our prices are cheaper than what's on eBay or the other auction sites. So, it goes both ways.
And you have a warranty, and you have a backup, and you have somebody to talk to if something goes south. If something goes south. What about our international market? We're right here in the middle of New York City, and obviously we have a lot of people walking in, but I know that whenever I'm in the store, invariably, I hear a lot of different languages going on.
Yeah, it's funny watching trends go around the world. For example, in Europe 5 or 6 years ago, nobody was talking film at all. And I was saying, gee, when is it going to start to move over there? And now it's a big part of the request. Everybody's looking for a Nikon F or lenses for. So you can actually watch information move around the world and watch the populations respond. It's really amazing because you have a first-hand barometer of what's going on in that store.
To go back to buying used gear, we spoke about camera bodies, lenses. That's something that is also important. I know one of the first things that I do is look through the barrel. Is there fungus in it? Is there fogging? Is there excessive dust? And by the way, I think it's important to say to qualify dust that a few specks of dust do not do anything to your picture quality. Mm-hmm. It's invisible. If you see a couple of specks, don't even a little glass bubble. Sometimes you'll find it's nothing. It does not affect the image quality. That is a minor aspect that never ever shows up. However, barrel wobble. Is it smooth? Does the aperture ring, assuming your lens even has an aperture ring, newer lenses don't have that. Is it smooth? Is it click? Do the diaphragm blades close down to the same shape and size each time it stops down at each given aperture? Because if you set the lens, say, to f8 or f11 and you stop it down repeatedly and it comes out to a different size and shape each time, you've got a problem. That's going to be uneven exposure. It's going to change the bokeh look of the out of focus specular highlights. Does it focus to infinity? A lot of little things like that. What you buy a lot of used stuff. What are some of the things that you
look for oil on aperture blades.
Yep.
I listen to all the shutter speeds if there's a built-in shutter. Feel the focusing helicoid. Tolerate some specks of dust within the optical system if they're black. Black dust, any bits of flocking, don't show. When it's bright, when it's white, it shows more if you're looking at a dark subject at that very position. You can see some interference, but if it's a black speck, almost never will it show. I
think another thing also, if there's a reflex camera with a mirror, there's always some kind of a foam or a padding. Make sure that stuff is not disintegrating because that fills up. Now, that's easy to repair, by the way, and replace. It's not a major issue, but if it is falling apart, it's getting into the mirror chamber, and that could be more issues,
sticking
bigger
to the
problems.
mirror.
I want to make a point about we seem to be gravitating toward the classic lenses and so on and so forth, but today's modern lenses, used or new, have a tendency to be wobbly anyway. So these are all things. If you come in looking for a 75 to 300 zoom for your Nikon or Canon, if you're looking around, a lot of these lenses, autofocus lenses, are built in with some amount of play.
That's true. Very true.
So you have to know what's considered normal or what's excessive.
Within reason.
Exactly.
What's within
and
reason.
You have a lot more complexity. You have stabilization systems now. Mm-hmm. So, you got to be on your game. Obviously, But if you have a digital camera, you can check that's the other great thing about digital photography is that you can see the image immediately. So if something looks bad, then you know you've got something bad, unless you're really bad about holding the camera steady or something like that. But
That's a very good point. Film camera, you don't know what you have until you put film through it and get it back. Whereas with digital, yeah, it's just like the
Feedback.
pictures are instant. There's your feedback. Is it good? Is it working? That's a very, very good point. So you could do a lot of checking in the store or right up front without having to go through too much trouble. I mean, the worst thing you want to do is buy a camera and go out on a vacation or go to any kind of an event that's going to be irreplaceable and find out that you got a turkey. You just don't want that. That's the last thing you want.
it happens even with new lenses. I mean,
Sure.
to be honest with you, there's a certain small percentage that. But again, part of it is if you're an experienced photographer and experienced with a lot of equipment. Yeah, you could kind of, if you're looking privately to buy stuff, you can, may be able to avoid problems. But, again, dealing with a reputable dealership, that's all done for you. And, that saves a lot of time, effort, aggravation, and, countless dollars. And, yeah.
Good point. For anybody who's looking, this is one of those little oddball things for checking out. If you're ever looking for a twin lens reflex camera, something you could check, something you should check is when you focus a twin lens reflex, the lenses go back and forth from the camera body. And when you come to infinity, the entire lens board should come to rest evenly if the top or bottom or left or right side reaches the camera body and one of the surfaces isn't. That camera has most likely been dropped, and you're not getting a true focus. You're not getting an accurate focus, and you may not be getting infinity. So that's a very specific thing for a twin lens camera. You always should check that out. I know I recently saw one that somebody said they had a beautiful camera. It was Rolleiflex. It was beautiful. It was not true though, and the person who bought it said, I didn't see that, and they brought it back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a million things. It's like taking a watch apart, That's how a lot of these cameras are.
I don't recommend taking watches apart.
Or cameras, because there's a lot of little things in there. So, but yeah, that's why you want people to make sure everything's working properly beforehand. So that's my advice.
Jason, you've been buying and using a lot of used gear for a long time now. Do you depend on specific dealers or people? Are there certain people you go to, and how do you judge the source of your gear? Because there has to be a certain amount of trust there.
Well, yes. KEH.com I've used before they were .com when I was a teenager, and that was a long time ago. So I use them as a reference. I buy things I don't want to gamble on from them directly.
I've been in this line of work for so long that what used to be a bricks and mortar situation is now morphed into a .com. So there are lots and lots of old-time reputable dealers who go on, who are on the internet now, because that's how you reach your customers and new customers.
What about selling gear? I'm a photographer, and I have gear I want to sell. And Jason, I'm sure you have plenty of stuff that you've bought and sold also. What do you look for? What can you expect as far as return on these items?
Well, I take into mind how much money I've made with them, for one thing, and how much relative value is left in the item. And particularly if I haven't used it for 5 years, I'll move it on.
It's good to move on. If you hold on to any electronic item too long, it's going to depreciate down to virtually nothing within 3 or 4 years.
Well, this was a terrific episode. Thank you, Jason and Chris and John, our producer, and Jason, our engineer. We have dual Jasons here. I think this is a unique. We never had that happen before. For more photo news and reviews, check bh.com/explorer. Follow us on Twitter at bhphotovideo, and email your questions to podcast@bhphoto.com. My name is Alan Weitz. Thank you so much for tuning in today.